everybody here. I am Bart Loeser, and I am your program director for Toastmasters District 55's continuing education program. We have had this fall about 14 or 15 different classes, and you can go to the tmd55.org website to find the list of them, as well as they're on our calendar, and I can also send you that information if you want to just write to me. But this is one of our continuing education classes, Mastering the Art of the Table Topic. And the reason why I wanted to have this is because, as most of you may know, this next year, starting in this winter, we're going to be having our next contest season. And of course, we always have our international speech contest, but districts can have a variety of other contests that they can have just for their districts. And our particular district has chosen the table topic contest. So we're going to be doing that contest this year. And although the international speech contest requires a certain amount of experience that you have to have under your pocket to be able to participate, to compete, the table topics contest, you need no experience. You could be brand new to Toastmasters. You just joined a couple days ago and you want to participate in your club's table topic contest. It's that simple. And table topics is both exciting and scary for people because it's the art of impromptu speech. Speaking on a topic that you hadn't thought of or had not been prepared for a minute before, or even seconds before. This is one of the reasons why I encourage clubs, when you do a table topic section, you probably should not actually say what your question is and then see who wants to take the topic. Because that would be a little more of an extemporaneous speech, because they've had a few seconds at least, if not a minute or so, to think about what you just asked and think, oh, I've got something I would talk about. So a table topic is you're chosen and you get up there and speak on that topic. So it's a little bit more intimidating. What we're going to be focusing on today is what's the purpose and benefits of having and mastering impromptu speech, why we do these table topics. What are some of the strategies that you can use to get there and be effective and be impactful? I'm going to offer some terrific table topic tips. Say that 100 times quickly. And we plan to impress you with, or show you how you can impress others with your impromptu speech. You know, how to really engage your audience and keep them focused. And there are a few things that Toastmasters International recommends that you should think about when you're giving a table topic, and I'll share that as well. We'll start with the purpose and benefits. Essentially, getting better at or sharpening your impromptu speaking, being able to speak off the cuff about something you were unprepared for, not only draws people more into what you have to say, it changes your impact on other people. When it sounds like you could just respond to something well, such as in an interview. How many of you sometimes get questions in an interview, and if you could respond well to it, it impresses the interviewer? You want to impress your audience with your ability to respond to something that you weren't prepared for. Answering questions with elegance or eloquence, answering questions with eloquence and elegance is actually something that impresses people as well. So being able to answer questions where you sound like you know what you're talking about. You sound as if, how many of you have ever heard a table topic that someone gets up there and answers it and you're thinking, they must have thought about this for a while. They just happen to know that it just seemed so smooth. Everything went so well. There's ways to do it, techniques for doing that. But as I'd mentioned, it helps you to improve your interviewing skills, which will also increase your chances of landing that job or getting that promotion that you're looking for. So it impresses people when it sounds like you know what you're talking about. And of course, if you can sound smart, witty, and charming, people love to be around other people who are clever, smart, witty, charming, and that can be us. I know I've always thought that, well, that's not my skill. Well, you can learn that. And how do you learn it? As Erica had said in the previous seminar, it's all about just getting up there and practicing it, doing it more and more. Being willing to take on a table topic every time, if you can. Going to clubs where you get a chance to practice that. Letting the table topics master know ahead of time, hey, I'd love to do a table topic. Because if you're in a really large group of people, sometimes the table topics master doesn't know who they're going to choose. And you could always send them a chat or send them a little note in a live meeting saying, I'd love to do a table topic. And they generally love to hear that. It makes it so much easier for the table topics captain. And generally learning how to speak in such a way that's short and simple, concise, but also sharp, a lot more alliteration, keep it simple, silly, is one of the keys to doing a good 1 to 2 minute impromptu speech. You don't have too much time for complicated speech anyway, so you want to keep it short and simple. Here are a couple strategies that I would recommend, and then I'm going to open it up to anybody who wants to share on here about how you do things. But number one, a great way to do this is have an opinion about what they ask. This is a great idea. I have actually used that to get out of jury duty. Now, I've done jury duty, but I tell you what, the lawyers don't like opinions. They don't like you to have pre-made opinions because one group of lawyers love that opinion. The other group of lawyers don't want you in the same room if you have that opinion. So it's one way that you can get out of, if you wanted to, you can get out of doing jury duty. Just have a very strong opinion about something that you know they're talking about, because they will have already shared what this is going to be about. And then they ask you, what do you think of this? Address cause and effect. This is a great way in which the human mind likes to organize things, is we want to think, what caused that? Or what was the effect? If this happened, what happened? What was the effect? And the human mind's always led to that. That's one of the reasons why we make a lot of assumptions about causes. Like if someone comes in late to a meeting, obviously they're not respecting the meeting planner, right? That's the reason, and they're doing it to be disrespectful, or they just don't care. Is that the reason they come in late to a meeting? Well, you don't know. There could be many different causes for why they came in late. They may not even have known the meeting started at that time. And said, oh, well, that's why they were late. So, but you shouldn't make assumptions, but the human brain does that all the time. That's what gets us into trouble, is that we rarely ask questions, especially if we've already figured out what we think the cause is, or we make assumptions about what the effect's going to be. Oh, well, if you do this, here's what's going to happen. Do you know that for sure? Well, the human brain always thinks it does. Break a topic down into components. So if you get a topic, think about what are some of the aspects of that I could discuss? What are the components of that? Such as, oh, well, Thanksgiving is coming up. Are you looking forward to it? Or are you dreading it? So what am I going to talk about? Well, what are the components of Thanksgiving? Generally, people go see family. Generally, it's about eating, usually about overeating. Other components about it is you get off of work, you probably travel somewhere, so there are travel issues. So a lot of components, and you can talk about any of those. But again, you got to keep it simple. So choose one. And you usually don't have a lot of time to choose, do you, in a table topic? So usually it's best to choose the top 1, 2, or 3 things you're thinking about before you start speaking. Another thing, discuss something that's either the past issue about this, the present, or the future, or a combination of such, if you can do that in 1 to 2 minutes. But a past, present, future, to me, it's the perfect icebreaker. When someone says, well, what do I tell people about me? Well, tell someone, what's one thing about your past you want to share with people that you want them to know? What's one thing about your present that you could share? And what's something about what you intend to do for your future? It makes a perfect icebreaker. We get to know a lot about you. And so that's why it also makes almost a perfect little table topic. So oh, by the way, I just wanted to find out from you guys, what are some of your strategies? Does anybody have a particular strategy that you use with table topics? And you could just unmute yourself and feel free to share. I would say my favorite strategy is having the opinion. I try to think about, so is it going to be positive or negative? But because I like to get people's attention, I not only think about the opinion, but I generally think, what is the last thing this audience is going to think will come out of my mouth? And that's usually what I open with. So would you share this opinion with us about this? No. And then you just pause and people go, wait a minute, that's not a table topic. But then you can go from there. So you just say something that's a way of being funny as well. But so I choose something that generally is the opposite of what people typically would expect. So that's how I like to challenge myself with the table topic. What are some other ways in which you guys do it? Erica, what's a favorite for you when you're doing a table topic? Do you have a particular strategy you use?
I just start talking. I don't like to pause. Sometimes there's a question that I have no idea how I'm going to answer it, and I am just totally stunned. and I'll repeat the question, and I might start with, I'm not going to talk about that, and I'll divert it to something else close
That's
to
a great
it. But
point.
I try to tie it back into the question, but I feel like I have to start talking to get to the point, and as I start talking, it gets easier.
I have someone who's in one of my clubs, every time he gets a table topic, he pauses for about 30 seconds. It seems like 30 seconds. It may be only 10 or 15 seconds, but that is a long time. He just gets on there. You're like, are you going to start speaking? And he just pause, 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 and then he'll say something. Well, the timing doesn't start until you make some sort of movement or you actually vocalize something. So in the contest, the timing doesn't start until then. So you actually could pause, but it might take away some of your points if you pause too long. I don't. It depends how the judge wants to handle that. But it's probably a good idea to pause for just a bit, because the moment you say something, that's when the timing starts. But you make a great point that, well, if you're not sure what to say, then talk about something else. Is it, that's a very interesting question to ask. I'd like to have some sort of answer for it, but you've asked quite a few questions, and I'd like to answer the question you asked earlier of Chuck over here, and you just talk about that. You can do that with table topics. So who else has a technique you'd like to share?
One of the techniques that I use is very similar to number one, express an opinion, except I like to put a little twist on it, and then I take the contrarian point of view, play like the devil's advocate, and then work that in, and then express that opinion, then come back and then tie it back into, let's say, converse of that to what the original question was.
Mm-hmm.
And, sometimes that's pretty effective depending upon what the topic is.
Such as when I'm looking at, let's say, Candy's window with the beautiful fall colors, and people have a theme of fall and said, what's your favorite thing about fall? I hate fall. It's like, and then you can go into, so it's a great way to get people's attention. But it's the opposite. They ask what you love about it, and you talk about what you hate. Yeah, that's a great way to grab people's attention. So it can be a lot of fun. I know I used to be a member of Austin Toastmasters. That was my first club years ago, a very large club. And there was a great guy in there named Conley who he always won table topics whenever he got up there, because they were so entertaining, because he lied through his teeth. He had these crazy wild stories about aliens taking him away and other things like this. They were just crazy things, but he would just make them so entertaining that everyone loved his stories, even though he never actually addressed, perhaps not address the topic, or would say something that was just clearly not true. And yet the audience just loved to go with him. He was so entertaining. For some reason, he hated to give speeches, but he loved table topics, and he was so good at it. But then I could imagine being that spontaneous. Speeches are the opposite of spontaneity. It's like, no, you got to plan it out. You got to practice it. And this is not. It's completely spontaneous. So who else would like to share what strategy you use? If we've got anybody else who'd like to share.
I just feel like I do what your friend did. I love turning it into a very colorful, fun story. True, not true, doesn't really matter. If I can weave a couple of strands of truth in there, great. But it's really much more about keeping people's attention and having fun with it.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a true story about your life or anything true. That is a fact. You can just say anything. Rakita, you were going to share.
I wasn't going to share, but I like the ideas that I've heard so far. I'm on here because I love giving speeches, but I get scared when I have to do table topics. I don't know why, but I heard some very good techniques here that I'm really looking forward to utilizing, especially since I'm not a very antagonistic person. I do love the way people do flip that and do a negative spin on it. I hate that. When you ask them, do they love it? So I'm learning something. Thank you.
And I actually love the fall, but the speech is funnier if I hate it and talk about what I hate. So, and you only have 1 to 2 minutes anyway, so you might as well just entertain them with that idea, even though it's not true. And I love Erica's idea of always deflect the question if you don't like the question. Just deflect it. That's what politicians do. They don't like some of these questions. They talk about something else and never get around to the actual question. I once did that on a radio show. I was an AIDS educator many, many years ago for about, gosh, almost 15 years of my life. And I was dealing with a very contentious radio interviewer who wanted to make it very clear that he believed that heterosexual people were not at risk for HIV. So, and he was making this point and talking stats and such, and it became a contentious interview. So when he asked me for my opinion, I gave him my opinion for about 30 minutes. I didn't let him speak at all. And I could speak about everything about that topic and statistics and everything. And I never let him have a word edgewise because I realized he had an agenda and I wasn't going to let him use his agenda. And so he said at the end of this, he said, Bart, I just have one question for you. And I said, yeah, what is it, Dave? And he said, when people ask you the time, do you tell them how to build a watch? And I said, sometimes you have to do that. Yes. So, but yeah, that's a great opportunity when you're being interviewed to be able to be spontaneous, and it makes it so much more fun. So here are a couple other tips to keep in mind. Some of them I tend to forget, especially Rakita, if you're afraid or nervous about table topics, the last thing you're going to think to do is to get up there and smile and look like you are thrilled to be there. And yet, people follow people who look and sound confident. You don't need to feel confident deep down inside. You just need to look confident and sound confident. That's the key to success of getting people to follow. They'll follow wherever you go if it looks like you feel confident about what you're saying. So smile when you get up there. Like, I am so thrilled you asked me that question, even though in my mind I'm thinking, I have no idea where I'm going to go with this. So, and you just smile and you just sound so gracious, and you say, I'm so glad you gave me that question because it's incredibly creative. And let me just make sure I'm understanding your question clearly. Could you just repeat it back again, as Erica had suggested? Get them to repeat it back. It kills a little bit of time and gives you time to think. So, because then you go, okay, now I know where I'm going to go with it. Okay, I wasn't ready when I got up here, but now I'm ready. But you're smiling and you're looking like you are total control and you are thrilled to be involved in this. How many of you ever had people got up there and go, I don't know, I don't know where I'm going to go with this. And now it just becomes painful for us to watch you do that for a whole minute until you can finally say, oh, I saw the green, I can get down, I'll sit down now. I said, please don't do that. Make it look like you're going to have some fun with this. Look like you're having fun, even if you're not having fun with it. So if you have to fake it till you make it, that's how you do it. So another thing, relax your mind. When we get stressed, we forget to breathe. Now, when you breathe, it's important to remember the lungs have two lobes. They have upper lobes and lower lobes. When we get stressed, we start breathing very shallow, only up here. And the upper lobes only hold 40% of your air. The lower lobes hold 60%. Where should you be breathing? I've got my cat very involved in this. Where should you be breathing? You should be breathing fully. But the problem is, and you can practice this at home, if you take in a deep breath up at the top like this, you can all try that just right now. Take a deep breath just at the top, then fill out the bottom part of your lungs. You cannot do it. Once you've filled out the top of your lungs, you can't put any more air in your lungs. So where do you need to start? Down at the bottom. You fill out down here first, then up here. Then you can get 100% of your breath. So when you're trying to control your fears and calm yourself, calm your mind, they're saying breathe deeply. They mean breathe through your diaphragm. Pull that air down into the bottom of your lungs and then into the top of your lungs. You might even practice that with your hands in the two different places or laying on your back with a book up here and a book down here, and you should see the books rise and fall at different levels. So, and that's how you know you're using your lung power well. And remember, speech is all about taking the lungs, taking the air out of the lungs and moving it past your vocal cords. So the better control you have of your breathing, getting a full breath in will help to control how it comes out. So that's an important point, and it helps to relax you. If you breathe just up here, the shallow breathing, it will actually stress you out even more. So make sure to take full deep breaths, especially before you start speaking. Take some deep breaths and smile. Look around the room if you're there in person. Look comfortable. And then you want the words that come out to sound confident and comfortable as well. And try to have fun with it. That's what we were all talking about. I know that was a great story that a couple of people had shared about how you have fun with it. Especially, I love the idea of taking whatever's said and thinking, I'm going to play devil's advocate and say the opposite. So they're leading me to talk about it this way, and I'm going to talk about it that way. And that grabs your audience's attention because they don't expect that. So, and then you can focus on how you're presenting it, but try to find some fun way, be really creative. So my way of doing it is I try to think of what's the last thing people would think about this topic. And that's what I'm going to talk about. So that's one thing to think about, is how you're going to be creative. But as we said, you can deflect the question. So you can do this even in the contest, but you probably will lose points from some of those judges. I just know those judges, even though they try to be not opinionated, some are going to say, no, you can't do that. You have to answer the question exactly as it was asked. And it's like, oh, okay, well, but in your groups, you can deflect the question. You can ask a previous question. You can even walk in there with already what you want to talk about and say, that's a really great question. I've had a lot of things that have been on my mind, but actually something that's even more pressing for me is this. And then you go into something else. So, but you can deflect it. You can talk about something that you don't have to address it. So don't let that stress you out if you're not sure. Although I will tell you guys, every time I've ever seen a table topics contest, I have never heard them ask a challenging table topic. They're always so basic that anyone can relate to it and anyone can answer it. So, what's your favorite holiday and why? If you could go anywhere in the world on vacation after COVID, where would you go? Have you ever been on a cruise, or do you like cruise? It's got to be something, but it's such a, open to anything. So generally you can answer almost any question they ask in the contest. That's not going to be hard, but then the problem with the contest is you're trying to be more clever than everybody else. And you don't get to hear in the contest how everyone else performed when you get up there. You're just going in blank, and they just call you and ask you the question. And the audience can hear all the different ways that question was answered, but everybody answers the same question, and you're trying to be clever, unique, and stand out, but also be organized and such. So how do you organize your thoughts then that quickly? Because I think when Erica was sharing her scariness of getting up there and getting a question that she has no idea how she's going to answer, not only do you have to have an idea what you're going to say, but it should flow in a way that people think goes well. It should be organized, have a great opening, have a good body, flows from different points, and then has a great closing. So then use the PREP method, P-R-E-P, to do this. And I like it because it's simple and it's easy to remember. PREP. So prep your table topic. So the first thing you want to do in prepping, start with your point. Take a stand of some sort. And as Michael said, he likes to take the opposite stand of where they seem to be going. That's a great way to grab attention. And most of the table topics people aren't going to go there. So if you really want to stand out, that's a great way to do it. Secondly, as people are going to, especially if you make a point that seems odd to people, they're going to wonder, why did you say that? What are your reasons for saying that? So it's logically where our minds go from here. If you don't answer that, it's going to leave us stuck. And we're not going to want to go forward with you if you don't give us the reasons why you say this, especially if it's odd. Then give us an illustration. Help us to relate to this with a story or some way, some example to illustrate this. This is why when people give a word of the day, they'll sometimes give a strange word and you've never heard this word before, and you're supposed to use this, and you almost wonder, why would they come up with that? Oh, it has something to do with the theme. What if it doesn't have to do with the theme? They might want to know, why'd you choose that word? Most grammarians who give an odd word don't suggest why they gave that word. And I think that would make a great grammarian speech. That 1 minute speech where they talk about being a grammarian. Tell us, why'd you choose that word? That strange word. And then the other thing we want to know is not only what it means, but can you give us an illustration of it? Use it in a sentence. Show us how to use that word. And it's the same thing with prep. So then, of course, your conclusion, you should always remind people what your point was at the beginning. So come up with a creative or way to deal with your point. And again, probably don't say in conclusion, although that can help the audience follow, oh, you're ending this. Generally, your ending should be real clear that this is your ending. So and that's why if you refer back to how you opened it, it makes the perfect table topic. So if you start with some weird, I hate fall, and then at the end it said, so, okay, maybe I don't hate fall, but it's not my favorite time of year. So that's how you end it, but then it refers back to how you opened it. It's like the perfect way to end a table topic. So how do you impress people with your impromptu speech? Well, first of all, sometimes the people in the audience didn't quite hear or understand the speech either. So it helps them to be clear where you're going with this, and it gives you a little extra time to listen and confirm. So not only does it, because have you ever had people give a response to a table topic and it seemed clear they didn't understand the table topic? And people are going, why are they saying that? Did they not understand? And you lose your audience that way. So it's best to always, if you're not sure what they said, get them to repeat it back. And I know some people ask some fairly convoluted table topics sometimes. I know a woman at one of my meetings was the table topics captain, and she thought the best idea for table topics was to trick people, to trip them up. So it would be, difficult to answer. And it's like, you really don't want to do that, especially if you have people who are fairly new to Toastmasters. It's already stressful enough just to have to get up and answer a question that you're not prepared for. But to give a really difficult question, don't do that to people unless they're extremely experienced and comfortable with that generally. Although it is a good skill to learn, to get a tough table topic. But they won't do that in a contest. You won't get a tough one. So I say that now and let's just see what happens, but generally you won't. Then of course, always pause and catch your breath, because the timing doesn't start until you make a movement, a gesture, and that doesn't mean blinking your eyes, but a movement, a gesture, or you start to say something or make a sound. Even breathing out loud, that's when it starts. Well, if the timer does their job well. So, but pause and give some thought to it. Now, I would suggest don't look up, because doing that looks less than confident. Like I have no idea where I'm going to go with this. Let's see. Any of those things, don't do those things. So always you want to look and sound confident. So the first thing you should do is what? Smile. You get up there and just put a big smile on your face. And then maybe the first thing that comes out of your mouth is, I love that question, or whatever. You can put a big smile on your face and just say, that's a really difficult question, but I have a great answer. And it's like, so there are all sorts of ways you can grab people's attention at the start. And people love it when you grab their attention with something clever or creative. Number 3, it's the tell. So use all your delivery stories and how you tell this story or how you answer this question, especially in using some examples that will help your audience as you illustrate your point. I love it when people make a point and then they illustrate it well, especially with a story. Although if you illustrate it with a story, you got to make sure it's going to be a short, quick, easy story. So, and that's what I just heard that the other day on The Moth. They gave samplings of each person's story. And so it was just I think it was a 30-second story that it was actually part of a story, but it left you just enthralled where you wanted to hear more. In a table topic, you don't have to finish the story. You can draw them into it where they're almost thinking, what happened? What happened to that? When it happened, what did you do? You may not have time to tell that, and it could make a great speech in the future. So sometimes when you give your table topics, how many of you sometimes give a table topic and think, this would be a great speech if I had more than 2 minutes? I almost always take almost the entire 2.5 minutes, but that can be risky. I was once at a table topics contest where I even went on with a great story. It was an amazing answer to this question. I was going to win. It was so amazing. And I just knew that at the end, though, you need to come up with a great conclusion, because they will judge you on that too. 10% is going to be on how you concluded. So it had to be an amazing conclusion too. And that took 3 seconds longer than I had. And I went over time. And then I was disqualified. And it's like, and it was only 10% if they judged me on my conclusion at all. So I should not have done that, but I was a little bit nervous. So, but it was an important lesson I learned, and you could use these stories in the future. So another thing here is when you do end, be concise and reiterate your point. And if you can relate back to how you opened it, it's always one of my favorite ways to do that. But this is what you want to do to impress your audience to win in table topics. It generally just has to flow. It has to make sense, mostly has to entertain people, and it does not ever have to be true. I've done a lot of table topics saying things and making opinions that are not my opinion, but I just said it just because it was an interesting way to answer the question. So, but keep this in mind. You want to impress your audience. So we're going to do a little bit of table topics practice. So I'd like you to, we're just going to give people a chance. And what I want to do is just have a person practice, or we'll do 2 or 3 people who practice answering this question. And then we're also going to have everyone else listen for what did they do well, and what's one thing you might recommend they do that could take this up a notch in their approach. And there is a great, I don't know if you guys know how to choose table topics, but one great way to find table topics is just to go online and get a list. And there even is a fun little one I found online called 365 sample table topics. And what I thought I'd do is just put that into the chat room so that you guys can see it. And I'll go ahead and open it up as well. Okay. Now you guys can't see it with me, but you can just download it. And it's 365 questions. And I'm just gonna say, I'm just gonna have you choose a number. So I'd like, let's see, who would raise your hands if you would like to participate? Great. So Philip, we're gonna start with you. Give me a number between 1 and 365.
202.
202. Your question is, where else would you like to live and why? Where else would you like to live and why?
This is a tough question since I've been to 36 countries and all 50 states. But if I did have to choose one place to live, I would probably live in the south of Spain, on the Costa del Sol. I really enjoyed it there because, first of all, it was warm all year round, but you also had the availability of the French Riviera. You were able to get into France for all the fantastic wines, but I also liked Spain in general simply because of the history behind that. Mm-hmm. I thought that it was some place that I would really enjoy, and the people are fantastic. So that would be really the one place that, if I were to really choose a place, that would be it.
All right, thank you. I think it'd probably be a good idea if I did timing on this to give you guys a better idea too of the time. So I'm going to set.
Yeah, I was waiting for that.
Yeah, I wasn't as prepared as I thought I would be. Okay, so I hadn't thought this out completely. So what I'd love to do is just spend about 2 minutes with people just giving some ideas. What's something that you really liked about it? And I'd have to say my favorite thing that I liked about it is I would probably choose southern Spain as well. I love southern Spain. Just anything along the Mediterranean is just beautiful to me, and I've been all along there, so I could live in any of those little cities, although I'd like to live in one of the smaller ones and not the large cities that are on there, unless it was Barcelona. I do love Barcelona, but I think it's better to visit than to live. But it's an amazing city and one of my favorites in the world. So I love that you talked about that. I would like to have seen when you started to look more excited about doing it, and probably not share with us your discomfort in having to choose. Like, oh, well, I don't know how to do this. It's like, instead, make it sound very positive. Like you're excited that you've got all these choices because you've done so much world travel. That's a great question because I've been all over the world and I could probably live in almost any of these places I've been. It's hard to choose, but I think if I had to choose, here's what it would be. Now, does that sound more like I was pretty decisive?
Yes.
And it sounds confident and actually sounds excited to answer the question. It almost sounded to me you were almost dreading having to answer that question until you decided where you were going to, what you were going to talk about. So that's what I would like to have seen, is more excitement in the beginning and that enthusiasm for being excited about answering that question, because you've traveled so much around the world and there's so many places you love that you would live. So great. Who else would like to share their feedback on what they liked and what they might recommend he do to improve? Yes, go ahead. Andy?
Yeah, Philip, I loved your answer. It was really good, and you had a story, and you gave us something to think about. You gave us information. I just want to, my own thought was the same as Bart's, but I just want to highlight it a bit more, because you had the most memorable thing about your speech for me was the fact that you've been to 65 countries in all 50 states. And that was really a strength, but you turned it into almost a negative at the beginning. So I think by approaching it like Bart said, you would have really hammered it home and really just made it so much better. Even though it was good, it would have made it better.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Andy. Who else would like to share? Candy.
So thank you for going first. I would say that what I liked for different reasons was that you chose Spain primarily because I've never been, and I really want to. So I was excited to hear what more you were going to say. My feedback on what you could work on, much in alignment with the others, is just to show more enthusiasm, more excitement for it, a little more facial expression, a little more intonation in your voice to sound really excited. I make up in my mind that someone who is that well-traveled should love travel. And I would love to feel that come through when you speak.
Excellent. Thank you, Candy.
Thank you.
So let's try another one. Let's go with Rakita, and I'll be your timer, so I'll take care of that. Give me a number between 1 and 365.
And we'll go with 100.
All right, 100. And I'm just doing this because it's like you could do anything to come up with table topics. I can't imagine why so many people who are table topics captains say, I hate doing that because I can never think of the questions. It's like, oh my gosh, I can do it like right now, 100 questions easily. So number 100, if happiness was a national currency, what kind of work would make you rich? If happiness was the national currency, what kind of work would make you rich? Rakita.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, the Table Topics Master. First of all, if happiness was a currency, I would be a millionaire because I love happy. Don't worry, be happy. If you heard that favorite song, that's just something that rolled around in my head. But I can tell you what, if there was a currency that could be given out for being happy, I would probably, everybody on this call would probably be a millionaire, because all you would have to do is just show me a slight smile, a little flicker of your teeth, and voila, you would be part of my happy currency. That's what you would be. Now, if I was to make up my own currency, it would be $1 with a happy face. You can write whatever amount you want on it. You can be rich, you could be medium rich, you could be overly rich, however you want it to be, because you would just be happy. Only you would know what makes you happy. That would be my currency that I would provide for everyone. Thank you, Mr. Table Topics.
Thank you very much for that, Rakita. Of course, like most evaluators who are dealing with people who are highly experienced, I can't even imagine what I would suggest you could do to improve. No, actually, I can. So that's my table topic. It's like, I don't know what I would suggest. One of the things that I noticed was that could take it to a new level, because I love the excitement, the enthusiasm, your creativity. It also felt like I was getting to know something that was very personal about you. So I don't think you're a very dark person. You seem to be pretty happy. The other thing is, though, I would say if we're online and Zoom at least, you should give us as much eye contact as you can, because you're not having to look at notes. And so you want to look at us, and the temptation is to look at us because we're down here or around here, and yet our eyes are actually up here. So you have to look into your camera while you're doing it. So it's like as if you were on TV, you're just looking at the little light on top of the camera and talking to them as if that was your entire audience. You know, you don't have to move around the audience, but at least you're looking us in the eye when you're doing it. Because otherwise it becomes really clear when you're looking down, maybe like you're talking to us, but you're not really talking to us. That was what I noticed. Who else has something you might want to share?
Hey, Rakita, I think one thing that would have really helped enhance this here just a little bit is whenever you was singing that song, Don't Worry, Be Happy, really exaggerate that and ham it up, because that is a very recognizable song and most people know it. And rather than just sort of minimizing it just a little bit, you know, really exaggerate, get into it, and, you know, put the smile and the enthusiasm in there, and then you'll get the audience to be singing along with you and to be moving along with you. And that right there is half of winning any contest, is to get the audience on your side, be cheering for you, because then at that point in time, pretty much most of what you say, even though they will be judging you on it, but you already won them over.
Thank you very much, Michael. I have to say, because I was maybe multitasking here, I didn't even know you did that song. It's like, what? She said that? It's like, I didn't hear it.
You're fired. No.
So if you're going in that direction and you're going to sing a song, fully commit. Go for it. Doesn't even have to be sung well. It's just have fun with it. Yeah, exactly. So thank you, Michael. We'll do one more, and then who else would like to do one? Let's see, Michael, how about you? Would you like to take on a table topic?
Sure.
And your number, what number will you choose?
Number one.
Number one, the very first one. You know it's always going to be the best question, right? Okay, here we go. When was the last time you tried something new? When was the last time you tried something new?
Mr. Tabletop Master and fellow Toastmasters, when was the last time that I tried something new? It seemed like it was very hard to decide that, but actually it's pretty easy. The last time that I tried something new was probably about 15 minutes ago, whenever I joined District 55 on these Zoom calls, because that got me out of my comfort zone, because most of the time I'm in District 16, which is from Oklahoma, and I thought I would come down and spend some time with you guys and see if you could inspire me and lift me up. And you did, because one of the things that I can tell you is this: even though we're all Toastmasters and we're all learning the same thing, one of the things that I can tell you is there are slight subtle differences, and it has a lot more to do with just the way that you guys approach things. And of course, y'all's Texas accent is just a little bit different than us Okies here in Oklahoma. You know, some people, they say Oklahoma, they're hillbillies and whatever, but I don't consider that to be push up against our culture. I just embrace it and say, hey, if that's the way that we are, we'll just make the most of it. And I love it that I was able to spend some time with you guys, and thank you so much for having me, Mr. Toastmaster.
All right. Thank you very much for that, Michael. I'll just add one thing that I saw you doing that I might recommend to take it up a notch more, is if you can keep your attention on us, because I notice when you're thinking, you tend to look down, like you're, again, we can tell you're thinking something, trying to, sorting through it and what am I going to say? And if you just looked at us while you're doing it, where it just looked like you just know what you're going to be saying, it would sound even more confident. So that's what I would probably recommend. You could actually add more facial, a little more facial emotions. Like I saw pretty much the same emotion in your mind, which is, okay, I'm thinking, I'm going to say this. I'm going to always look like this through my entire table topic. And it's like, smile at points. You can, there's a lot of expressions you can do. You can think of some gestures you might do that would enhance it even more for me. So those are some things I'd suggest. Those would take it up a notch or two, but that's really what this is all about, is how to be the best we can be in terms of table topics. I'll go ahead and return to and finish up the presentation. Toastmasters International recommends, and there's a great, by the way, a great little booklet or document that they have on Toastmasters International about doing table topics and how to be best at them. But they suggest overall, be confident in how you look and how you speak. So again, that's more important than whether or not you feel confident in what you're saying, because I know sometimes in table topics we're uncomfortable and we're thinking, I'm not sure if I know what I'm going to talk about. Always look like and sound like you know what you're going to do. So people love that, and it impresses people. Keep in mind, it's only 1 to 2 minutes, so you've got to be brief. So try not to talk about anything that's too expansive. And lastly, be sincere. Now, that doesn't mean you can't talk about something that's not true, but if you're going to do it, you go for it. Like you can't, if it looks like you're faking excitement, it's like I would say, hey, yeah, it's nice to be here. So thrilled you asked me that question, but be sincere, just be you, but try to be the most creative you can. Just like I'd mentioned to Rakita, if you're going to go for something, go for it big. Try to be big with it, go all out. So you only have 1 to 2 minutes to really get them. So I'd say commit to it and just really make it. And then I probably would say the same thing for you, Michael, is just go all out, take that excitement up a notch or two to even be. And then of course that you might say, well, that's just not me. And say, oh, okay, well, but can you add a little bit more to it? That's what I would suggest. But be confident, be brief, and be sincere. My takeaways are smile and always look confident, sound confident. Use stories to your advantage, but they got to be stories that you can get to the point quickly. Don't do a story where you can't get to the point unless you're okay with leaving them hanging with the story, but don't take too long, because that can draw you out of your time frame. And then remember to prep. That's perhaps my most important one. That's your point, your reason for your point, an example that will illustrate your point, and then refer back to your point. And keep in mind, this is still a speech, so use all of your speaking techniques. Use the body language, the gestures, the facial expressions, the vocal variety. All of those are just as important as what comes out of your mouth. And so those are the keys to being the best you can be at table topics. And as Erica had shared at the previous workshop, the more practice you get doing it, the better you're going to be. So I'd say go attend other meetings where you can go, and you may not be playing a role, but you can take a table topic, and always let the table topics captain know, or the topics master know, that you're interested in being one of the people chosen, because then they will probably choose you. Nothing drives me crazier than a table topics captain or calling on speakers and evaluators. It's like, you got other people in the meeting you should be calling on. Those people already have big jobs to do. So, but come and visit these clubs and learn to practice these table topics so you can master these skills. You can find out more information about this topic, as well as many other topics that we're teaching, including a lot of leadership topics for officers and such coming up over the next month. That would be very helpful for you to promote. So make sure your club members know about these. Those information is found on tmd55.org. We have a continuing education page, but we also have a calendar, a snapshot calendar of all events on there. I'll just see if anybody has a few questions as we end. See if anybody has anything in particular that's still hanging with you that you want to know about.
Bart, I have a question.
What was that?
I have a question.
Yes.
So you said that in table topics, you can make up stories, you can lie, all of that. But when you are in a contest, there are, for speech contests, for instance, if you have a statistics or something that you quote, you're supposed to say who the source is, or does all of that rules apply to table topics in a contest?
If you make a quote, you probably should say who it was. As Martin Luther King once said, you should definitely do that. And you might want to look up the quotes to make sure, because sometimes a lot of quotes are attributed to people that they actually didn't say. Be the change you want to see in the world. I mean, who said that?
Gandhi, I think.
That's what everyone says, but Gandhi didn't actually ever say that. Gandhi said something that was about a paragraph long that in a roundabout way got to that point, but that wasn't what Gandhi actually said.
Okay.
But actually it got changed up a couple times, and there was actually a teacher at a conference who actually and she said, you know, Gandhi said something that I thought was very important. Basically what he said was, be the change you want to see in the world. But that wasn't actually what Gandhi said, but that was what she said, and now it's quoted all the time. So make sure if you're going to quote that it's an accurate quote. That's helpful. But
Yeah, but
really, they
if-
let you be pretty creative. So yes, you can tell something that is a totally fake story. It doesn't
But
have.
my point is though, will you get dinged if you say the wrong source, or you don't have a source, or you come up with the statistics? Do you get dinged for it in table
I
topics?
don't believe in table topics you would, because you should research those and have them in your speech, but at a table topic, you can't go research something.
Right.
So you might even just safely say, I believe it was Gandhi who once said, you know, and just say it that way, and you can't go wrong. So that's one way to do it, but you're probably not going to get dinged with that. But remember, these are human beings. I will say they will have their own opinions on what they think you should or shouldn't be doing in a table topic. But I would say always review the judge's sheet. And you can go online and get the judge's sheet for each of these contests to find out, how am I being judged and what are they judging is the most important? You know, what percentage is going to be judged on my intro? What percentage is going to be, you know, my point? What percentage is going to be, so that find out what it is that they're looking for, and a good judge will follow that to be able to decide what your scores are going to be. So always get a sense of, how am I being judged? And that way you can find out what's going to be the best way to approach a table topic. It's also a good way for any contest, find out how you're being judged and gear your speech or your performance to that. And that would be most helpful. Good question. Thank you. Well, that's all the time we have. I appreciate you guys being here. It's a pleasure working with you. I've recorded this, so I will be sending this recording out, and it will be in our resource library, which is also on my continuing education page. So by the end of this month, I'll have that and many of our other courses on that page. So you can see many of them, even if you didn't come here live. So I appreciate you guys. We'll hope to see you soon, and I wish you the best of luck in the International Speech Contest and in our Table Topics Contest. We'll see you then. Take care.